welcome to Beyond the Studio, the EMD UK podcast with me, Sue Wilkie. And today we're here with Olivia Clarke. Welcome, Olivia. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. So thank you for coming along. For those people who have not heard of you before or who are on the podcast, can you give us a little bit of backstory to what brings you here today?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me, by the way. So I've been in the industry now for about 14 years. But I feel like I've been in it my whole life because I grew up in my family gym. But right now I am head of education at Vibe Concepts. I'm the founder and director of my CIC, Vibe Life. And I also am cardio sales manager for Kaiser UK. So there's a lot going on. But I have had 14 years in the industry. It feels like longer because I grew up in kind of going to my parents' family gym. It was called FitBods in Warsaw. They opened that in 1994. And pretty much as soon as I was old enough, I started taking part in the classes, absolutely loved it. It just became part of my life, really. And then I qualified to be a Vibe cycle instructor when I was 16. And then as soon as I turned 18, my mum was like, Olivia, you need to get your exercise to music. I didn't really understand the importance of it back then, but now I'm very grateful that she did push me to do that. So yeah, I've worn many hats. I've been a group exercise presenter. I've been a PT, an entrepreneur, trainer and assessor, gym manager. So I've kind of seen the industry from lots of different angles. It gives me a really broad perspective and I've learned something from each role that I've taken. And I kind of bring that with me now on everything that I do in the industry.
And it's great because I do know your parents, as in like that whole influence. Looking back at the influence that they had on you, you know, because obviously that's led you down that path. Is there anything you see like from any of them that there's a superpower that you've embedded and kind of gone, oh, I love how they did that and I've put that into how I deliver now?
Yeah, I would say they've kind of both molded me into the instructor and fit pro that I am today. And I've kind of grown up watching them and emulating them, but just taking little bits from each. So I'd say the main kind of superpower that I got, and a lot of people know my dad and he's very famous in the industry and he's fantastic at what he does. But it actually all did start with my mom. She kind of encouraged him to do his exercise to music and that kind of started his career off. And I just think having that strong foundation of freestyle fitness and being able to choreograph your own routines and having that creativity in your classes, I just think that is the superpower that I believe they gave to me because I'm now able to kind of walk into any room, teach any class and feel really comfortable with it.
Yeah. You've been very lucky, although you're still very young.
Thank you.
You grew up in the era where group exercise was very much freestyle. Do you see yourself, and you're speaking really more as an indoor cycling specialist as well as your group X, a difference between the instructors then to now?
Yeah, definitely a big difference. I'd say indoor cycling specifically has evolved a lot over the years. I'd say kind of 10, 20 years ago, things were more data driven. People were more kind of focused on getting a workout out of their indoor cycling class. And it was very much seen as, you know, the instructor is the expert at the front of the room. I'm here to be coached. But I think nowadays it has evolved into more of an experience. So rather than just coming and having a workout, it's become coming and seeing people that you know every week and having that music to drive you and having the lights and just everything to bring together an experience. There was a gap for that when my dad started off, and my dad actually worked for Kaiser back in the early 2000s in a similar role that I do now. So he was training instructors in what was then called studio cycling, and people loved his classes. They loved what he was doing, but he noticed that a lot of people actually really connected with the music and how the class made them feel rather than how many calories they burnt or how many watts they pushed. And he kind of saw that gap, and that's where Vibe was born. That kind of started off what we now know as rhythm cycling. Yeah, I think there's definitely a space for both in the industry because there's people that prefer one versus the other. But I think, yeah, in general, then versus now, I'd say workout then, experience now.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I was one of those original teachers many years ago. And I remember indoor cycling was one of those areas that you were shoved into a court somewhere. The bikes were pulled out and shoved onto a squash court or pushed onto a conference room that had no air conditioning and no windows. And then you look at how it's evolved into the studios that Peloton have or some of the boutiques in London, and it's just phenomenal. But it's like, again, you can see the experience as well as just that data. So let's talk about the tech or the actual bike itself. Have you seen the evolution of the bike? And where do you see that sitting now? Is it, because we do know there's some people who are data-led, and then there is the people who are rhythm-led. So for the tech side of things, specifically, what's changed?
A lot, as you can imagine. I think just in general, obviously, we've had over the last kind of 20 to 30 years, the evolution of tech has been very, very fast and a lot's changed. But I think the main thing now that's different tech-wise is the fact that we're riding and we can just see a multitude of data just right in front of us in real time. So we can see our watts, we can see our cadence, we can see calories burnt, distance travelled, we can see FTP percentage, colour zones. There's so many things that we can see, especially on our new Kaiser Studio bike, because the screen is much bigger, there's room for more data. And we also have software that goes along with it. So apps where people can track and save and share their data. A lot's happened over the last few years. And it's really important that the instructors and the coaches really use that data if that they know the participants are really keen on it and interested in it. A lot of people are really motivated by numbers and data. But that being said, I don't think that everybody is. And so I think there's always the space for kind of data in the industry, of course, but there is also space for those more community-driven, experience-led classes like Vibe Cycle, where we focus on the music. But I'd say with the rise of tech, it's kind of hard not to use it because it's everywhere. So part of what I do when I teach for Kaiser is I teach instructors how to get the most out of the tech, but I also talk a lot about RPE, so rate of perceived exertion, because we can't forget that our bodies actually tell us a lot that the data can't. So I really try and get instructors to hone in on, yes, you can use the tech, but what if one day it's not there? Can you still teach without it? So I think it's just important to be a well-rounded instructor/coach in that kind of regard.
I'm quite data-driven. I've done indoor cycling for years and I cycle outside. And I got on a bike last week and talking about the RPE, the data screen wasn't working. And I was like, what do I do? And it's like, you do panic. So I think it is a skill set that we have seen through the evolution of instructors, going from being someone who can attract people to come to a class, went very data-driven, then it's gone to experience. And then in where I live, there's not a lot of people using data. It's usually around maybe the RPM that you're using on it. So I think it's interesting to see the differences, but I know can vary based on the tribe of people who are coming to your classes.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the best classes just encompass both.
Yeah.
You can, as an instructor, you can talk about data, but it doesn't mean that you can't talk about feeling and rhythm and music and get people to really feel the beat and get immersed in it. There's no reason why you can't do both.
Yeah, exactly. We have got kind of a split with live and digital. I think especially there's been a massive evolution in the last 10 years, probably more 5, especially since the pandemic, of a lot of digital options out there. So what's your experience of it?
Yeah, I think the pandemic was a big shift, wasn't it, in terms of everyone had no choice but to teach online. And that I was one of those people. I've always been an in-person instructor. I thrive off being around people and that connection and community. But there was a time when we had to teach online. Did I enjoy it? Probably not, definitely not as much. It served its purpose, I think, at the time. And I think now moving away, when we're moving down the road after the pandemic, people are more comfortable sometimes doing classes online. That may be because they don't feel comfortable to go to the gym. Maybe they don't have the time or the means to get there. So I think there is a space for digital fitness, but I don't think it should ever replace live fitness. No. In person is just the feeling you get and the experience, the community you can build is kind of unmatched, really. And I know EMD did a lot of research around kind of the social value of group exercise. And I just think that is so important. It's not just about a workout. So I always say people can come to your class. They're not going to remember what exercises they did. They're not going to remember how many calories they burnt, but they might remember how you made them feel in that moment. And so I think in-person group exercise does have the power to change lives.
Yeah.
I think there's a space for digital, definitely.
Yeah, and I'll back up the digital a little bit more as well, because I do think there's people who, the evolution of how we work nowadays, yes. Everyone's in a rush, especially in the UK. We're trying to get from here to there. And so for people who are working and maybe live a little bit more remote, digital is still a great option. And look at the massive growth in Peloton with their classes and other brands out there that are doing it on demand and digital. There is a space for it. And I think I'm going to pick up on one of the spots that you picked up, especially ticking back to the social value report. But I think that's where digital can play a massive key for people who have that barrier of going into a studio, because it is quite daunting.
Oh, 100%.
To actually get into a studio. And just to go through some research we did for people is if you take somebody who's never done physical activity before, the first barrier is convincing themselves to go, then getting the car keys to then get out the front door, to then get in a car or on a bus, to then arrive at a location, go through a set of doors, to another set of doors, to speak at reception, to then go into a class and set up a bike or any other type of class.
Yeah.
That's a large number of barriers for someone. So I think digital can be used and is being used by some leisure trusts and operators to get people into physical activity.
Yes, I agree.
But the flip side of it, the sticky glue of meeting people in a class. I use going to an indoor cycling class as my commute because I work from home.
Yeah.
So actually going in the morning, that nice connection we build.
Yeah, I think the world is becoming increasingly digital and increasingly isolated. You know, a lot of people work from home and maybe you won't see anyone day to day because you're at home and you're on calls all day. So I think that having that in-person group exercise could be the highlight of someone's day, could be the only time they see people in that day. So I think I treat my classes as such as well. Like when I go and teach, it's kind of like, oh, I've finished work now, I can go and teach.
Yeah, doesn't feel like teaching.
Not at all, yeah. It's more just catching up with my participants, what you've been up to this week. I just think, and seeing the connection that they make with each other is just like, it warms my heart. You know, they all have group chats. I'm not in them, but that's okay.
I think that's quite protects your professional boundaries, should we say, as well.
I think it's nice for them that, you know, they've met each other and they've got something in common and they go ahead and create that little community for themselves. So yeah, I think digital, like you said, is a great way, a gateway, which could be a really good way to get people, you know, to see, okay, exercise is not actually that bad. I might actually go and try it now in the gym. Whereas in person will always win for me.
Yeah. So let's flick more into your realm a little bit more about Vibe.
Yes.
How's that evolved and how is that going for you as a business as well?
Yeah, we're going really well. Still going. It's interesting really because people often think, oh, Olivia, you work for Kaiser. Like, is that not a conflict? Is it not different? But it's very different. And we actually use, and we always have done, champion Kaiser bikes in Vibe. It's that we think they're the best bikes. And so I'm very privileged to be able to work for Kaiser in that regard. But we are seeing people still loving rhythm cycling. They still love coming to get that experience. And our model has always been recognising the potential in participants. And when they love it and they feel inspired and they want to inspire other people, they train to be instructors. And so that model has worked for us for the last kind of 20-ish years. And it's what we continue to push. We want the people who have experienced being a participant to then become instructors because they know so much already, they don't even realise. But yeah, we're going really well. We obviously have Vibe Cycle as our main concept. We also have kind of 7 other freestyle fitness concepts that we train people in. And I then, 2023, I created my community interest company, which is kind of an offshoot of Vibe, because I realised that what we were doing was really good for the community and we were providing a service for the community. And I thought, how can we kind of push this a bit further and reach more people?
For those people who haven't heard of this before, because I think it's a great opportunity for instructors to know about it, can you explain what a CIC is?
Yeah, so a CIC is a community interest company. It's essentially a company that works for the benefit of the community. So you trade as a normal company, but then you can then apply for grants and funding to run community projects. So anything that benefits the community. And we know very well that exercise does that. So I created that in 2023, as I mentioned, and really it was a big learning curve for me to kind of do that from scratch. But it's been really amazing because I've had such a great support network around me to be able to do that. But yeah, so we run community projects. So things like Vibe Fit Moms, where we do fitness and nutrition for new moms. We do mom and baby classes for them. We do older adults classes, like, you know, on chairs. We do Healthy Hearts for adults at risk of heart disease. So there's just lots of different demographics that I think are overlooked by traditional fitness outlets or maybe face those barriers that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in those people. I think if you've already joined a gym, you've kind of done that hard work and you're already crossed that barrier. So we tried to focus on the people that will think that the gym's not for them or that they don't have the confidence to go to the gym. So we're trying to get those people to understand about exercise and nutrition and how it's going to benefit their health.
So what are the type of barriers that you see? I mentioned earlier just one of just getting to it, but what are the barriers that you've seen in where you work that people are struggling with?
A big one, especially concerning indoor cycling, because you mentioned about how back in the day indoor cycling was, you were shoved on a squash court somewhere and it was very rugged and raw. But I think a lot of the time having these fancy studios, it's sometimes perceived as a luxury. And a lot of places that do indoor cycling, especially maybe boutique studios, they are on the pricier side. And so cost is a big barrier for people. We're in a cost of living crisis. People are struggling to put food on the table. So for them, they think, well, I can't afford to spend £20 on an indoor cycling class. So it's not something that I would ever do. So that's the main barrier for us that we're trying to break down is cost. So we provide all the services for free to get people started and get them on their journey. And then after that, we provide subsidised activities. And then, after that, if they feel like exercise is something they really want to pursue and take forward in their life, then they'll go and join a gym. But I think, cost is definitely the main one.
And that's then tying in nicely with the CIC element. So again, just for those people who don't know much about CICs, with you being able to apply for funding pockets, that allows you to use that money to pay the instructors.
Exactly.
So that the participants don't have to pay, which is, I know so many instructors are going, I want to work with more people. I want to give it away for free. I feel guilty charging. Setting yourself up as a CIC is a really valid way of taking your business, but checking where you can apply for it and not. Because a CIC, if you live in somewhere that's an affluent area, you're highly unlikely going to access any funding pots.
Yes.
Whereas if you set yourself up and you can, target a LSEG community or a barrier, what evidence did you have to go through to provide to get the funding from pockets?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think some people, they'll hear sound bites and they'll think, oh, I'll do that. It's easy. But it does require a lot of work behind the scenes, and community consultation is a really big thing about actually asking people in your community, what do you want? What do you need? Rather than thinking, well, I provide this and I want to provide it for free, so I'm going to do it. It's more, what do the people who you're serving actually want and need? So community consultation was a big thing. I spoke to a lot of people in my community. We held steering groups. I did online surveys, because that then provided the evidence and the backbone for the grant applications to show, like, hey, people are struggling with the cost of exercise. Mm-hmm. People are struggling with low confidence. People are struggling to find the time and energy to go to the gym. So all of that was really kind of pivotal for me, having all that evidence. And it was really pivotal personally, to be honest, to read and to see a lot of the comments and the feedback that people were giving about their lives. It upset me a lot because, I've been really privileged to grow up around group exercise and just exercise in general. It's just always been part of my life, and I know how much it's helped me. So the fact that a lot of people had never had that in their lives, it did bring a tear to my eye. So that kind of motivated me even more. So community consultation, really important. Again, it's really important to know the funder. You can't just, it's like a job. You can't just apply to 20 jobs with the same cover letter. You've really got to tailor it to what are their priorities? What do they want to fund? And it's not always, you don't always have to apply to kind of fitness funds. It's what we provide is a community service. So it is bringing people together. It's reducing social isolation. So it's about looking at it from lots of different angles about what you do, because we're not just an instructor. We're doing a lot of other things that, people will pay for and funders will fund you to do for the community.
Even if you're not applying for a CIC, anyone who's listening, I think just taking that bit of information of going, know your audience, is a step that we sometimes take for granted as instructors. We kind of rock up. We're so busy because we're learning the choreography, we're playing the music, we're all this other pieces that land us to stand on stage and people think it's effortless. Actually, when you're struggling with numbers, learning your demographics, spending an hour where you go into a networking group and ask what they need, or working in a care home, or having those conversations at the council offices or something like that will really help you understand. And going back to the funding pockets as well, there are so many diverse ones out there. So you cannot send one blanket email out. But what you can use is our social value report.
Yes.
Because what you'll need a lot of the time is evidence. Stats and data. Yeah. And you're sitting there going, I don't know what I'm worth, or what I'm actually bringing. The social value report goes into everything from the actual overall savings to what it's saving on the NHS, to mental health, to long-term health conditions, to back pain. So you can download that, because I think that's a really good piece for you to be able to use to access funding pots.
Definitely. I do use the END social value report all the time. It's a great some of the stats are great that you put right at the start to really catch their attention of the person that's reading. But Yeah, it is about explaining what we do in the way that makes sense to them and a way that they see valuable. Because we might think it's valuable to teach an amazing aerobics routine with grapevines and turns and chasses, but they're like, I've never done a class before. I don't know what that even means. So it's about writing it in a way that they will understand and connect with, really, pull on the heartstrings.
Absolutely. You deliver cycling. Yes. What else are you delivering?
We do kind of legs, mums and tums. We do specific classes for specific demographics. So the fit mums, the older adults, the healthy hearts. We target mostly extreme beginners, people who are really, really new to exercise. And we try and do classes that suit them. So rather than say, this is the class that's on, come, it's more, what do you feel comfortable doing? Try this. And we try and offer a wide range so that people can try and find what they like. Because if they love it, they're more likely to stick to it. But if they come in and you beast them for an hour and they sweat and they cry, they're going to go home and say, I'm never going back there again. So it is just trying to make people feel really comfortable in a group exercise environment, and whatever they need, we try and provide, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's not one size fits all. And we're really aware that, someone could love one thing and someone could love another, but how can we bring all of that together to provide a complete service for the community?
One of my favourite sayings, meet them where they're at.
Exactly.
Hi, have you hit that subscribe button yet? Just a reminder to tap the button so you don't miss an episode, and help other instructors to listen by hitting share. Back to the studio.
It must be really lovely to see people from the beginners. What's the changes you see in those people?
Wow, that's a great question. A lot, to be honest. And I have seen it go full circle. As I mentioned a bit earlier about our model in Vibes, how we recruit instructors is from the participants. We don't hold back from recognizing their potential and letting them know, like, have you ever considered being an instructor? And they're like, what? No, of course not. Why would I do that? I could never do that. I've met a lot of people who've come to my class and they've been not in a great way, low mood, not great mental health, low confidence. And they find something they love, and you just kind of see that change in them week after week. They get more confident, they get the routines a bit more, they start chatting to the other people in the classes. And then there's one person I have in mind in particular who then did go on to become an instructor. And I just thought there was so much power in that, because she's got such a great story to tell, because she came from never have done a class before in her life. The first time she walked into a gym was to do the exercise to music course, because she'd only done community classes.
Wow.
And she's now able to kind of pass that on to the next person. And it's a bit like a cycle. Yeah. So she kind of can now inspire other people who maybe were going through similar things to her. And it just has that ripple effect in the community. And it's amazing to see. And I absolutely love it when people come from that kind of a backstory, rather than someone like me who I don't know any different, which is fine. There's no issue with that. But that's a great story to tell.
So that's what we call the sticky glue in group fitness. It's the community of I'm at the back of the class, first time going, to then connecting with somebody at the back. Then after a couple of weeks, you might move a little bit further forward. And then boom, before you know it, within 9 months to a year, most instructors have come from making that change from standing beside someone to then standing at the front, which is the EMD UK hashtag stand at the front.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's really what's lovely. And to get more people, as a national governing body, we're looking at how we remove those barriers for people for participation.
Yeah.
But isn't it great that means that could be our future generation of instructors as well?
It's amazing. Yeah. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to do what I do. I love doing what I do. I love seeing all the people come and break down those barriers and prove themselves wrong a lot of the time, because I think people tell themselves they can't do it from the get-go.
Yeah.
So sometimes they need to be told you can do it, but it's really, really amazing being able to see people go through that journey.
Yeah.
And end up loving group fitness, because when you then love something that you love, it warms your heart, doesn't it? It's like, yes, you get it now.
Yeah, I think that's why we all become instructors, isn't it?
Exactly.
There's an empath part of us in there that wants to help people become better.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get back to indoor cycling a little bit.
Yeah.
Where do you think that future lies just for the indoor cycling?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think about this often, and it's really hard to say in 10 years because so much could change tech-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think tech will continue to evolve. I think that bikes and indoor cycling will kind of integrate tech a lot more. Maybe some more like immersive things. I'm thinking about potential immersive cycling studios where like you look around and each wall is you basically being in XYZ, a place, maybe a jungle or a city.
Yeah.
With the rise of digital and everyone potentially becoming a bit more isolated, I do think that community in-person class will still be really important and really thriving in 10 years' time. I think people really still are going to want community and need it. So I don't think that in-person indoor cycling is going anywhere. I think, at Kaiser, we're doing really well with selling a lot of new bikes. People are really kind of getting back on that indoor cycling craze. Vibe, we're doing fantastic in qualifying lots of new instructors. We run events kind of every other weekend, and we pack out a studio full of bikes. We ride for 2, 3, maybe 4 hours, and people really want it and they love it. The tech is going to evolve a lot, but I think the in-person is gonna evolve more, I would say. And I think I really hope that in the industry we can kind of band together and recognise that there is space for everybody in the industry to thrive, whether you prefer data, whether you prefer rhythm or experience-led rides, whether you prefer a mixture of both. I think the future just lies in choice and being able to choose the classes that you love going to, and instructors should be able to kind of be able to coach what they're good at and what their niche is. But the best classes, I think, will kind of have a bit of both. They'll be data driven, but they'll be to the music and they'll be rhythm led. So yeah, I think choice is the main one for me there.
I would actually second that, because I think if you look at, there's a large number of studios that I've been to where they've kind of got to doing a lot more digital, and they're saying, oh, we're going to remove the studio because it's just not working. And I sit there kind of internally kind of going, oh my word, please just look at your timetable and offer a variety, because one size doesn't fit all. And the nice thing with indoor cycling, don't just sit there and think it's one style. It has so many different styles. Data, it's rhythm, it's safety, because we have seen some very random things on bikes in the past. So, always go back to the safety element of it. But I think there is such variety. Don't think of getting rid of studios.
Yeah.
Think about what you're having within those studios and create a immersive timetable that offers a wide variety. Cycling becomes harder and harder and harder and more developing with the instructor, because they think you have to become harder. We've lost the skill sometimes of stepping back and offering that beginners, so that there is an entry point for somebody, that they're coming in and they actually understand how to set up the bike and working at a level, whether it is just for rhythm right now. So I think indoor cycling, as I'm sure you'll agree, has such a broad spectrum. There are so many different brands out there, but they've all got an offering that support each other.
Yeah, you're so right. And oftentimes I'll go into gyms to do workshops and courses, and I'll look at the timetable and it'll just say group cycling 3 times a day, every day. But I know that each class is different. And some classes will be data driven. There'll be instructors that are outdoor cyclists and that they're really keen on the watts and the pushing the power and watts per kilo. And then one of them will be a vibe cycle instructor who doesn't even talk about watts. So as a participant, if you go to class on a Monday night at 6 and it's a data driven class and you're really pushing through the numbers, and then you go on a Wednesday and it's a vibe cycle class, you're like, what? These are very different. So I think, really specify what type of cycling is it on the timetable. Is it data driven? Is it rhythm driven? Is it a brand like Vibe Cycle?
What level?
That's exactly what I was going to pick up on. I think you make a really good point with the beginners classes, is have an entry point for people. Because if somebody goes to a class that's been going for 20 years and everyone's been going for 10 years, they will feel like that they can't compete. Some places, they will do kind of competition rides and things like that. And it can put people off. And I think as an industry, we have to be more welcoming to the beginners, make them feel welcome. I always say when I do a course, if you've got 25 regulars and 1 beginner, that class is for the beginner. You focus on them, you make sure they feel comfortable, you make sure the class is accessible for them. And I think that always goes back to having a solid foundation as an instructor as well, of being able to adapt your class when you need to and being able to teach a class that's suitable for a beginner, but also pushes the regulars. And that's an art in itself.
Absolutely. This is for instructors out there. But if you are feeling like you're a little bit like, oh, I haven't changed up what I'm doing for a while, there are so many companies out there who offer training and upskilling, or just go and try something different. I've just been away at IFS, the International Fitness Showcase, and we've got there's a brand up there, but there's so many different type of styles of delivery up there. You go there and you come back and you feel inspired again. It's like, oh, I've taken away that one thing from that class, will make you a better instructor. Because sometimes that simple technique of just videoing yourself and seeing, gosh, I forgot to do an intro, or I forgot to do this, or I said that all the time. It's that great skill of always developing as an instructor to become the best that you can be, and or never just plateauing. I think that's that development.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make. And I think that hones true in indoor cycling, especially because as an indoor cycling instructor, whether that's Vibe Cycle or any other concept, is that it can get a bit repetitive and there's only so much you can do on a bike. So oftentimes I'll have instructors contact me and I'll run workshops to kind of give them ideas of how to kind of diversify the class a little bit more and give some variety. But I think a great way to do that is to go to other people's classes, experience how other people teach. And even if it's just one thing you pick up, like you said, that can completely change your class. Your participants will be like, oh, it's a brand new class. Because maybe you changed one track or you said something different, or you did maybe an interval track that's a little bit different. So I just think, keeping your ideas fresh, and don't ever think that you've reached the top of your game as an instructor. I don't think you will ever stop learning and you'll never stop evolving. And I think it's great for you to do, but it's great for your participants as well. For the ones that have been following you for years, but also the ones that are new, making sure that your class is also suitable for them.
So what is the science behind Vibe and the BPM?
In Vibe, music is the heartbeat of the class. That's what we use to kind of channel the energy through the instructor to the participants and then back to the instructor. So in terms of BPM, we focus on kind of 3 main different track types, those being climbs, runs and sprints, each one with a different BPM and a different resistance level. So when you think about a sprint, it's a sitting down, going really fast, and thinking about having a little bit of resistance, but those type of tracks are more kind of like beat driven and you need that motivation to keep going faster. That's the purpose it serves. And then obviously you've got your runs, which they're kind of in the middle of both. So more drum and bass, things with great drops, things like that. I personally love a run. It's my favorite type of track to teach because I just think the energy is just immense when you're in those type of classes. And then we have climbs, which are slower, seated or standing, slower RPM, and really making sure that you've got that technique and the good rider stance and making sure that you're pushing through the legs in that one, thinking about how much power you use. Again, really motivating music with a good drop is always amazing when it builds up and everyone in the room's like, oh, it's coming. And then it drops. And I think, part of why I love Vibe Cycle is that kind of everyone in the room is doing the same thing at the same time. We're really strict on rhythm riding. It's a discipline. We keep the same lead leg. We keep the beat the whole time. If you get tired, you just have to continue. And I think that's where the workout comes, is having that resistance level that's appropriate for the track, appropriate for the BPM, but also knowing that you have to keep the rhythm, especially if you're up on the stage, you have to make sure you keep the beat. So if you get a bit tired, it's kind of pushing through that tiredness. Just really the music then provides that energy. And I can't explain to you, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I can't explain to you how amazing it is looking out and seeing whether it's 10, whether it's 20, whether it's 100 people all riding at the same time, doing the same move. We're dipping on beat one. And we're really getting into it. There's people that are just watching the class that are just dancing around, like waving their towels. And I just think that, the music just drives everything. And as the instructor, it's our job to curate that and make sure that everything is as it needs to be. But as a participant, you're just there to have a great time and immerse yourself in it and feel the vibe, as we say.
Hey, thanks for listening. Did you know that EMD UK provides group exercise instructors with professional support and training for less than the cost of hiring a hall for a day? Keep up with the sector, stay on top of training, and receive exclusive content at emduk.org. Now, back to the discussion.
So with Vibe being based around the music, we can't get away without asking the question of going, how has music licensing affected Vibe over the years? And have you had to change your delivery at all in order to work within the parameters that are set?
Over the last few years where music licensing has become more of a topic, people come to me often and say, Olivia, what do? I can't teach without this music. And Vibe, like you said, it's around the music. It's based on the music. So using any old copyright-free music isn't going to cut it. You actually need to put the time and energy creating playlists that you love and that you connect to, because then the participants then feel that from you. If you use music that you don't like or connect with, it's very obvious.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a shame because I wish that the industry as a whole would just have more kind of compassion for the people that need the music. And that's not even just the instructors, that's the participants I'm talking about there. But yeah, so a lot of instructors have had to adapt their delivery. If they're teaching in commercial gyms, they've had to kind of really dive deep and find some half decent copyright free music. And it's possible. It's not the end of the world, but we are always championing original artist music. We encourage instructors to teach in the community now, so they can hold their own license and they can teach they can teach the music that they want. But I know that's not possible for everybody, especially with indoor cycling, because it's not really easy to just buy 20 bikes and wheel them into a community centre. So it's something that we are actively working towards changing. We are creating a Freestyle Fitness Alliance, and we want to kind of really push original music and make sure that there's an avenue for the instructors that do really connect with the music. There's an avenue for them to be able to do that, whether that's paying for their own license or figuring out a way around what's been implemented, really. I think it needs to be a conversation with the instructors and the operators rather than a one way, this is what you need to do.
There's a lot of people, the first time they'll come across indoor cycling might be on the Instagram reels. You know, we're seeing everyone dancing around on Instagram or whatever. Let's talk about Instagram versus reality and safety as well.
Yeah, really good point. And my For You page is full of what I can imagine yours is as well, is just of those classes that you see on the reels. But yeah, they look really sometimes intimidating, a bit daunting. Looks like they're going very fast, standing up out the saddle. They must be really fit to be able to do that. But I think, that could present some barriers for people because they may look at that and say, well, I could never do that. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I could probably never do some of it too. So I wish that there would be more kind of real content online, as in people experiencing real classes and saying, well, I wasn't perfect today. Yeah, my foot slipped out the pedal. Yeah, I needed to sit down during the class. And having that relatable content is so much more empowering for people. Yeah. So I think that content does exist. I just think it's not getting viral. It's not getting as many views, but that does present a barrier. I'm not going to lie. I think it's hard to kind of look at that and then say, yeah, I'm going to go to my local class, because it looks kind of really hard to do. And then on the safety aspect, sometimes you do see some really interesting movements going on. Maybe I don't know if you've seen someone with one foot on the pedal rather than both. There's a lot of content where people aren't even holding the handlebars. I'm not going to bash anybody, but I'm really big on safety and technique, and it's got to be safe, especially if you're trying to recruit new people, because it could be dangerous for them. They could get injured. So yeah, in Vibe, we're really, really hot on technique, and we do cycling-based moves, but they're all controlled and they're all, like I said, cycling-based. So you're never going to catch me on one pedal and hovering over to the side or taking my hands off the handlebars, anything like that. I just think it's important to coach really safe cycling and making sure that everyone in the room can do what you're trying to ask them to do, rather than doing a really complicated routine and then only 3 people at the front can get it because they've been coming for 2 years and everyone else is kind of just sitting there like, what's going on? So I think social media can be so powerful and amazing to encourage people to come to exercise classes, but at the same time, it can be a barrier in itself. Yeah. And so we've got to find that balance, I think, really. We
have a lot of instructors who are going at the moment going, how do we help promote ourselves on social media? Don't be one of those people who are just pushing out the hard, the weird, the wonderful. Have a look at going back to those basics and delivering those, the basics out there. The fun, the engagement, capturing what's happening and the stories behind it. You Definitely. Don't need to be creating something new and weird and wonderful to be seen and to be noticed. Just be really mindful if you're trying to attract a certain type of participant, make sure you're delivering the reality rather than the Instagram.
Definitely, and show people's real experiences, like you said, because it's way more relatable. So if you have someone on your Instagram who's, speaking about how it was their first class and they really enjoyed it and, they met some new people, that could encourage somebody to come. Whereas if you post a perfectly polished reel of all your participants looking perfect, all in order, it might put people off and think, well, I'm going to ruin that, so I'm not going to go. So yeah, having really relatable content has really helped me, especially in my CIC, because like you said, you've got to think about the type of people that you want to attract. And if they saw that, how's it going to make them feel? Yeah. So social media, it's definitely very, very powerful for that. And it's all about knowing your audience, isn't it?
Absolutely. And being unique.
Yeah, and authentic.
Yes, absolutely.
Authentic. Don't try and post something because someone else has posted it. Post what's authentic to you and what your class is and what it means to you. And another thing as well is being present on social media, which is something that I've had to learn over the last few years, is people are interested to see you and to see what you look like and where you teach. And again, that can help break down barriers because they've already seen what the instructor looks like. They've seen what the community hall looks like. They know what music's going to play. They've seen some of the participants on the reels. It just kind of creates a bit of a more relaxed atmosphere for those newbies.
Psychological safety, isn't it?
Definitely.
Because you actually know what's coming rather than actually that whole scenario we talked about earlier where we're walking through all those doors.
Yeah.
We've also given a tip away of going video getting from the car park to actually the hall so people know what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's something you can send even after they've registered to come to the class. So they actually just feel that psychological safety, because we want group exercise and we know how powerful it is. And we want to make sure we keep making sure our spaces are inclusive. So try and stay within that safety. Make sure you're being authentic to yourself.
Definitely.
There has to be multiple, but is there any standout moments throughout your career where you've seen change in people?
Yeah. One that springs to mind definitely is a recent one, actually. So we ran our Healthy Hearts project through Vibe Life, which was a fitness and wellbeing program dedicated to help people at risk of heart disease. So we got them to kind of do some beginners fitness classes, introduce them to the gym, introduce them to nutrition. There was one gentleman who came and he did have type 2 diabetes at the time. He completed the 12-week program and then he'd actually reversed his type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
It was amazing to hear that. And he was just very grateful for obviously the project and the instructors and what he'd learned. But I just think that for me cemented, this is why I'm doing this. Like, it's really important that people know you can reverse your type 2 diabetes through diet and exercise. You don't have to take medication. So I think it just really, really cemented for me how important the work that we do as Group X instructors is and what we can change in people's lives. So that's a standout one for me.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's more than just the class. It's the change you can create in people's lives.
For sure.
So talking of the future, but for you this time, you're still very young. So what does the future hold for you? Where do you want to take your career next, or what have you got on the horizon?
I feel like I have so much going on at the moment. I can't even think about anything more than a week away. But I just want to continue in this industry that I absolutely adore. It's treated me so well so far, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, as you can probably tell. So I want to continue growing and thriving in this industry. I see Vibe and my CIC going to the moon. We want to expand. So we are going to hopefully be opening a space sometime soon.
Wow.
That will kind of be the start of the brick and mortar Vibe, I think, and really trying to bring those people into a space that they feel comfortable, they can have it as their safe space, and just transforming how the community sees group exercise, I think would be my mission, is get people to really love it how I love it and inspire other people and keep that kind of going, the ripple effect.
Well, we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
So we always finish off on the podcast with a question. It's our ripple effect, basically. You mentioned it earlier and it made me chuckle because I'm like, it's how we finish them. Is what's that one piece of advice that you would give an instructor out there? It might be a new instructor or a current instructor. Is there a piece of advice that you'd give to them? I mean, you've given lots of knowledge bombs throughout the day, but is there one thing you would like to pass on?
The one thing I would say to either a new instructor or an instructor that's currently teaching is to have a solid foundation. So it doesn't have to be exercise to music, but I would recommend to do something like exercise to music to start off with before you go and do any pre-choreographed concept or any concept in general. Have a solid foundation, understand the music, understand phrasing, how to cue, technique, how to create a class and design a class, because that's just going to give you such a good foot forward to be able to teach any class you would like. But a lot of times they'll go to a class, they'll love a particular concept and they're like, I'm just going to go straight into it. Let's just go. Why would I do exercise to music when I don't need it?
Yeah.
But I just think having that foundation has just made me the instructor I am today. I can walk into any room and you could say, oh, you're not teaching step now, you're going to teach aerobics instead. And I'll say, okay, or I could go into a class and I'll go, I've got my routine ready. It's really complicated. It's amazing. And then I'll see 10 new people and I can just change it.
Yeah.
And I just think having that skill is just invaluable in this industry. And thank you to my mum for getting me to do exercise to music and for getting my dad to do it, because I think that has really given us that platform to be able to be the instructors that we are today and being able to teach multiple disciplines always comes back to doing exercise to music. So I'd say have that foundation is the main piece of advice. But the secondary piece of advice is do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
If you're loving it, if you love exercise, you love your group fitness, then do it. Like do that as a job and don't let people put you off and say, oh, you won't earn much money. There's so many avenues you can take in the industry. So I'd always say, if you love it, just do it. You'll inspire more people and you'll be successful.
When you do your group exercise to music qualification, it allows you to become your authentic self in a class, because you can then flip and rotate and you are authentically Olivia Clarke.
Thank you so much.
Not your mum or dad, you are you. You are shining in your own light and it's a pleasure to have you here today with us.
Thank you so much, Sue. It's been amazing. Thank you.
That's right.
So that's it for today's podcast from myself and Olivia. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your podcast platforms.